My name is Nohidaya binti Zuraini and I'm going to present for the background of the Malay ruler of the subject Constitution of Malaysian Society. Malaysia practices parliamentary democracy with constitutional monarchy and His Majesty the King as the paramount ruler. The federal constitution was legislated with the setting up of conditions for the system to exist. One of the characteristics of parliament democracy is the separation of its power into three parts, which is the legislative, judicial, and the executive. Malaysia is also a country that practices a system democracy based on federation system. In accordance to the states of Perlis, Kedah, Penang, Perak, Negeri Sembilan, Melaka, Johor, Pahang Terengganu, Kelantan, Sarawak and Sabah has agreed to the concept of forming Malaysia. Each state involved has surrendered part of its power such as financial, defense, education, foreign affairs and others. As stated in the Malaysian Constitution, which is administered by the central government. There are matters that are under the power of the state, and each state administers the power over those matters. As a country with constitutional monarchy, it is therefore elected by the Constitution, the institution of His Majesty, the King as the paramount ruler. The hereditary ruler of the 9th state and the Council of Malay ruler, His Majesty the King has the power to safeguard the custom and tradition of the Malay people and the administration of the Islamic religion in each state. His Majesty the King is the head of the Islamic religion for the state of Penang, Sabah, Sarawak and the Federal Territories. His Majesty the King is the highest commander of the armed forces. His Majesty the King carries out his duty under the Constitution, the advice of the Prime Minister and the Cabinet. Meanwhile, the hereditary rulers are head of the state of his own state and carry out their duties under the advice of their Menteri Besar. So the structure of the Malaysian Parliament. The Malaysian Parliament is divided into three components, which is His Majesty the King, the paramount ruler. Second is Senate. Third is House of Representatives. So the history of the Parliament building. In December 1951, an area near to the Kuala Lumpur Lake Garden was chosen as a site on which to build the Parliament building complex, a building that symbolized the democratic principle that are practiced. These principles are the right and responsibility of the citizen to rule their own country, the freedom of each citizen to voice out his or her opinion, the freedom to practice his or her own religion, equal rights before the law and the right to own their own properties. Thus, in September 1962, a hill about 61 meters above the sea level was leveled to build this glorious building. The RM18 million complex was envisioned by Tuanku Abdul Rahman Putra Al-Hajj, Jamalullah DSM, SMN DQ Brunei on 31st August 1962, which marked the beginning of the construction of the building. On 21st November 1963, His Highness was again given the honour to officiate the opening of the building, which is the building consists of two main structures. First, the main building have 3 stories, and the second, the tower, 17 stories.
Monarchical institutions are also associated with religious issues. This is because they are the boss religion in their respective states and responsible maintain the religion of Islam, as well as any amendments that want to be made against Islam need to get the consent of the king first. The rationale for the role of the council, the kings in this matter are constitutional, only emphasizing the question of state administration. So, in the case of religious matters left to control by a monarchical institution. According to the concept of the constitutional monarch, they are required to receive advice from minister and act in accordance with those advices. For example, at the central level, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, in carrying out his duties, His Majesty shall act in accordance with the advice of the cabinet. While at the state level, the king should acting on the advice of the government meeting concerned. However, in this case, the advice given should be guided by provision and fashion constitution. This explains that the advice contrary to the constitution and the law need to be complied. At the federal level, Yang di-Pertuan the Agong must be appointed a sultan who elected from the kings of the 9 states Malay. Based on the concept of the king constitutionally, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong is given the governing power of the federation in which His Majesty are required to act on the advice of the cabinet. At the state level, which refers to Malay state constitution, unless the constitution of Negeri Sembilan, the Sultan is its head of state and has executive power state. Nevertheless, the power must be implemented on the advice of meeting council or president. The Sultan also has power pardon and defer punishment to those who have been convicted of that offence performed in his country. The Sultan also has power to make appointments below state constitution and state.
My name is Ahmad Aiman Wafi, and I will present about the ruler or the function of Conference of Ruler. The Conference of Ruler, likewise Council of Ruler, Majlis in Malaysia is a committee including the 9 leaders of the Malay state and the lead representative or Yang di-Pertua Negeri of the other 4 states. It was authoritatively settled by Article 38 of the Constitution of Malaysia and is the solitary such foundation on the planet as indicated by the Malaysian National Library. Its fundamental obligation is the appointment of Yang di-Pertuan Agong as the king and their appointee the Timbalan Yang di-Pertuan Agong, which happen at regular interval or when the position falls empty either through death, abdication or expulsion from office. In spite of the fact that its situation during the time span elective government is novel, the Conference of Rulers likewise assumed a part in altering the Constitution of Malaysia and some different approaches, specifically those articles which have been dug in particular those relating to the situation with the rulers, the exceptional advantage of the native Bumiputra, see by Article 153 of the Constitution of Malaysia. The situation with the Malay language as the public language and the provision overseeing the enrichment of such article at the point when no state stay on the rundown as fluctuated as per subsection, or if at a political decision no ruler of a state on that rundown is equipped for political praise or acknowledged office, the political decision list will be reconstituted to include again the state of the multitude of rulers. Yet in the accompanying request, in other words, those whose rulers have held the workplace of Yang di-Pertuan Agong in the request in which their rulers have held that office, and the others following them in request in which they were on the rundown before it was reconstituted. That's all for
Hello,
me.
my name is Ausha Sabila, and now I want to talk about the role of Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Yang di-Pertuan Agong is the constitutional monarch. Under Constitution, he is the supreme head of the federation. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong is head of Islam in his home state in Malacca, Penang, Sabah, Sarawak, and the federal territories of Kuala Lumpur, Labuan, and Putrajaya. He is also the supreme commander of the armed force. Under Article 153, the Constitution, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong must safeguard the special position of the Malay and the natives of Sabah Sarawak and the legitimate interests of other communities. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong is elected by the Congress rules from among the 9 rules of the state from a term 5 years and selection by rotation. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong resigned his office by writing Congress rule, and the Yang di-Pertuan Agong may also be removed from office by the Congress rules. In detail, the jurisdiction of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong is divided into three, which are executive, legislative, and judicial. Executive role of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Article 39, the institution grants executive power the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, although there were some expectation in the institution regarding the power and position the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. The king generally receives advice from the cabinet, or more specifically, the prime minister. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong may act in manner speaking in three institutional functions. First one, inaugurating a prime ministry. Second is agree or not approve the request to dissolve the parliament. Third is requesting that the Majlis King be held sole regarding the privilege, position, glory, and greatness of the king and taking action in the meeting. Second one is legislative role of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong. Federal legislative power is vested in Parliament, which consists of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong and two council, their Senate and the House Representative. The Yang di-Pertuan Agong as part of the component of Parliament has the following powers: to convene Parliament, to meet from time to time. Second one is dismiss and dissolve the Parliament. The last one is judicial role of the Yang di-Pertuan Agong, which is appoint any person qualified to be appointed as High Court Judge to be Judicial Commissioner, having power as High Court Judge on the device of the Prime Minister after consultation with the Chief Justice of the Federal Court. Thank you.